get going with Christy's talk. Christy, over to you.
All right. Hi. Hi from St. Augustine, Florida. Um, I'm going to give you a 10-minute, a 5-minute introduction, and then I'll show the slides. If you haven't already, I hope you'll give a Pachaka talk. The preparation is intense. Creating a story with images in brief time frames is like making a segmented worm. It should add up. Give the audience a takeaway. I did a presentation here in March, and I've identified 5 stages of process awareness. My model is death, the 5 stages of grief. 1, the selection committee accepted me. I must be okay. I want to share my big ideas. Those attending will benefit from my wisdom. 2, what have I gotten myself into? No time. Nobody answers my email. I sent it 15 minutes ago. I must be an imposter. 3, if I tell the audience how I'm changing art and literature with ideas backed by brilliant artists and thinkers, that'll be plenty. 4, attendees will come late, won't understand. I'm truly crazy imagining my insights are valuable. How can I win a MacArthur when I'm so stupid? 5, I'll only be naked 15 minutes tops. I'll talk about violating the page gutter, widening worldview to a landscape mode, and appreciating Ann Carson's stillness. Okay, so that's my model. Pachaka is a global movement started in Japan by architects and designers to remedy rambling lectures. Presenters tell stories accompanying 20 slides, each on screen 20 seconds. My slides will stay up 30 seconds. The form favors big images and discourages text. Atypical of the form, I'll show lots of text and have one slide with music. My story juggles multiple inspirations, ideas from Stéphane Mallarmé, digital tech, some British innovators, and an oil painting by Alfred Otto Wolfgang Schultz, later known as Vols. My work tends to ripple outward into a gallery of my own making. How does your unique energy flow? Does it dance on the diagonal, move straight ahead, or dart about willy-nilly? Let me tell you a bit about my practice. I was moved by an untitled Vols abstract painting. It brought to mind many images, a city, a map, and a slice of bread. Instead of a page-long ekphrastic poem, I ended up with a chapbook in progress. I wrote about the artwork, researched the artist and period, created my own images, and wrote about them. What I learned about Vols helped me create my own art and writing. I'm going to show and read fragments from my essay poem, A Slice of Stains. In French, tache means stains. Tacheism was an abstract expressionist style in 1940s Europe. Vols' work is marked by scrapes and stains. It feels kinetic and layered with history. Vols was opposed to the Nazi regime and took refuge in Paris. When France entered the war, he was automatically interned at the infamous Camp des Milles. By marrying Grete de Bija, a Romanian Frenchwoman, he was freed. But catch-22, that meant he wasn't in imminent danger. Thus, his US visa request was denied. One of my overarching inspirations is Stéphane Mallarmé's A Throw of the Dice, Will Never Abolish Chance. At first, I couldn't read the poem. Even when translated, I couldn't understand it. Yet I was immediately attracted. I see the poem's text as image. Placed with exceptional spatial awareness, words seemed to move. I felt exhilarated. Another influence is my digital orientation absorbed in the 1995-2000 World Wide Web revolution. HTML, a gift from Tim Berners-Lee and friends, remains fascinating. Adventurous types subverted scripting designed for business and industry into tools for literature. Applets could send text spiraling. Frames and animation let multiple worlds unfold. The browser was a performative space for image and text. Participation was a shared reality. The computer interface and Mallarmé's practice share positive benefits. They support layout, which indicates thinking, graphic arts, and the movement of text in space over a screen or on a page in a book. I still love joining image and text and try to celebrate art and writing equally. I've listed a few people who've taught me valuable lessons. Analyze your inspirations, see how they intersect or become discordant. The intrigue of dissonance can be pleasurable. Throughout my talk, I've salted references to creative thinkers. I follow those with new and transferable ideas. My takeaway: consider adding images to your papers and moving text around the page. Please don't try to read everything on screen. Relax, I've given you the basics. Have a sensual, meditative experience. At several points, I'll stop talking. Enjoy those silences. Okay, now I'm gonna screen share, and I've got my little list of tasks here, so please be patient. Okay. This outline covers what I've been saying. I'm expanding major ideas from Mallarmé and realizing what the digital revolution has given me. The piece is in progress, and I'm letting Voles and his art guide my story. Do writers know art history? Do artists know literary references? Friends tell me, cut all illusions. I didn't. Bowles said, everything I dream happens in a very large, very beautiful, unknown city with vast faubourgs and streets. I dare not draw it. Bowles made some playful works with a lyrical sensibility like Paul Klee, but the mood is darker, edgier. Words clump around the painting detail here, like barnacles around a buoy. Text becomes image. I plan to write a short ekphrastic piece, a constellation poem. When scattered phrases like stars in the sky have resonance, readers can draw connections, develop their own narrative. I adopted this idea from Mallarmé's dissonant poem, A Throw of the Dice. Critics link Voles to Jackson Pollock because art-making gestures are visible in the work. But Voles' art seems invaded by a dramatic backstory, and he's body-centric. I see those qualities in works by Tracy Emin and other post-war European artists. Voles rips my heart out and shows it to me. I put bread in his mouth to feed myself. Baudelaire smells musk, tar, coconut oil, a hemisphere in his lover's hair. I see a city map in a slice of bread. The crust, a prison boundary, rusty moat with peeling paint. Berlin blue is a life raft. Sample the earth's core, map the outer reaches of hell. Relax, no bluebird will fly from this bread. Writing about the prison camp was hard. To break an impasse, I often move a line through a text block, forcing me to read it differently. It's like finding water with a divining rod. In a DeMille documentary, a convict uniform was shown. I took screen grabs of the building. A photo filter added stripes. I thought that was a fitting result. At the top on the right, you'll see a Dante's Inferno mashup which creates, I thought, an appropriate mood. He recalked the ribs, smeared the tresses with pitch, and set the foundation on fire. Smoke commingles with the gesture, now out of his body and onto paper. Round midnight, a tendril stretches over the sidewalk, ready to latch on. I brush it aside, notice a hairy caterpillar with orange bands. When Jimmy Page speaks of guitar playing, his face lights up with pure joy. He uses images and metaphors like a poet. The Kashmir riff is a cascade that goes over the top and hits an atonal point. I found a penis in Voel's painting, decided to highlight it. Pleasure hinges on little shocks. A Photoshop bread experiment. Is this the daily bread I was promised? I see the glossy veil dripping olive oil, bold, grassy taste. Soon we'll marry in the shadows on shoulders of love. At 38 in Paris, Voles ate rotten horse meat and died. No refrigeration. Grady took meat off the floor and fried it. The Canadian poet Anne Carson believes the absence of text in Sappho's fragments leaves room for imaginal adventures. In Throw of the Dice, empty space can be like the parting of the sea. Critic Shigeho Shiba thinks Senran, Japanese for refined or polished, moves viewers of Voel's work. He trusted and refined his deepest senses. In one Back to Black refrain, Amy Winehouse consistently paused 8 seconds before the word black. Silence can be exciting and easy to provide with blank white space, the auditory equivalent. The term pause is also used when bradycardia slows the heartbeat and a person stops breathing. Writing text across the book fold was one of Mallarmé's radical ideas. Violating the gutter improves the chance of creating scenes, expanding horizons, letting text occupy space more vibrantly. I think frequency of viewing a vertical phone screen versus the horizontal computer monitor likely impacts how we see the world. We're scratching off layers of history. We're in medieval times, the time of troubadour culture, but no one is singing, the era of heresy and inquisition, and all are dying. Space-time pioneer Virginia Woolf said, "The past is beautiful because one never realizes an emotion at the time. It expands later." In prison, Voles designed an arts and sciences circus. I'm analyzing the painting to see how his round objects and or my words relate to each other. Do these navels or bullet holes have implicit assumptions? The satellite should bristle with life, not be dead in the water. Bowles was proficient in several fields. By age 6, he had mastered the violin. As a young man, he apprenticed as a Mercedes mechanic. He apprenticed as a fashion photographer. He took glamour shots of women, eyes closed, as if dreaming of a romantic encounter with. After I'd been staring for a month at Voll's unnamed painting, I read a review with two imaginative but unlikely names. One was Burnt Toast, the other was Veronica's Veil. I doctored a cloth from Zubairin's 1658 painting and added toast. Transferring essence is a miracle. Food traces elemental to one starving, or a gut level relic. The text here says funnel cloud, wine-stained napkin, circling, crashing, seeing paths of motion. I imagine the kinetic potential of text and image. I love painter Maggie Hamling's ocean waves, her salt and sweat embedded in roiling seascapes. Does the sea stop for the bleed? David Schramm, astrophysicist, likened the expanding universe to raisin bread rising. People aren't the dominant matter of the universe. As a child, Voles learned to appreciate diverse cultures from family friend Leo Frobenius, an ethnologist, anthropologist. Circus Voles, a total artwork with philosophical underpinnings, marked the demise of his delusions of grandeur. This is the painting that inspired my slice. The untitled work was given to MoMA by the Menils of Texas in 1956. John Menil wrote in a letter, "Titles do not belong to the paintings." He quotes Voles, "We tell our little earthly tales through little pieces of paper." Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Christy. I'm glad it worked in the end. It was lovely.
Oh,
Uh, I'm
so should I do anything to quit that?
Yeah, if you can stop sharing, if you can see the Zoom apparatus at the top of, yeah, there you go. All right, brilliant. Thank you so much. And again, we'll do a discussion session after Amy's lightning talk. And so if you've got questions, things that you want to talk about, anyone, go ahead, hold on to them. You can put them in the chat. And Christy will be able to respond to that after Amy's lightning talk. Thank you much. All right. I now turn over to Amy Spencer for her lightning talk on poetry, AI, and museums.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will just share my screen. Always risky. 1 second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Good. So because then you can't see anyone once your screen's up, and it's always risky. Hi, my name's Amy Spencer. I am a researcher at Bath Spa University in the UK. I'm part of a big project called My World, which explores the future of creative technology by pioneering new ideas, new approaches and processes, and it's based in the west of the UK. I'm going to begin. So, visitors to Wordsworth Grasmere, a museum opened in the UK's Lake District in the 30s to celebrate the life of the poet William Wordsworth. For those of you who don't know, William Wordsworth was a celebrated English poet, a key figure in Romantic poetry of the late 1700s and early 1800s, and his work was a celebration of the individual and a glorification of nature. He celebrated in particular the Lake District where this museum is. So I worked on a project where visitors to the museum were invited to have a spoken conversation with an AI-generated visual and audio version of the poet. So it was based on an 1804 portrait of William Wordsworth, and the visual AI was developed by Bath-based software developers, Rocket Makers. It was a collaboration with Bath Spa University, where I worked, to understand how people might interact with generative AI in public settings. AI Wordsworth uses natural language processing to generate human-like spoken responses to visitors' questions. So it builds on several large language models, and it was fed specific information about William Wordsworth and his life. It sort of simulates and automates conversations. The aim is for visitors to this specific museum to be able to talk with William Wordsworth, to try and understand how such technology might be used in a positive, constructive manner for audience engagement, to make technology more inclusive, accessible. And it offered us as researchers a chance to understand how generative AI tools might be used in museum settings. So there were some specific questions that we wanted to understand in this research, which I've got on the screen now. So I was interested in what types of questions visitors ask AI Wordsworth. How do they interact with this figure on a computer screen that you can talk to and he can talk back to you? How can we understand the unpredictable nature of using AI in public settings, specifically generative AI, and the risks, that it might not work? I mean, it didn't always work, which is not unsurprising. Sorry, who is this technology for, that should say? What are its benefits and its perceived values? And this was something that our partner Rocket Makers, who are experimenting with this kind of technology, they wanted to understand who it was for, what would be the benefits to the audience, and in particular, who might pay for it if they developed a prototype beyond this very early stage prototype. I'm hoping I can share it here. So if I press this and it starts, this will be a recording that I did of AI Wordsworth on a computer screen. It's a bit shaky. I think I wobbled when I was filming it. But yeah, I'll just show you a couple of seconds of me asking AI Wordsworth a question, and so you can see the technology. You'll notice that one of the challenges with it was getting the words that he speaks to sync with the way his mouth moves. So he looks a bit sort of a demonic Wordsworth, I might call him.
We're not hearing sound, Amy.
Oh, no.
So if you stop sharing screen and then share screen again, you've got to click the share audio.
I had. You kind of don't need the sound, actually. I think I wanted to show you the way that his face kind of doesn't match super well with the mouth movements. So I asked him a question at this point of what are your reflections on the 21st century, because I wanted to test how much he knew about the modern world, or whether he was completely embedded in his time. And he spoke quite eloquently about how he thought technology might develop in the future. So he kind of had positioned himself within his world, and he was thinking about kind of technological innovation, but from his perspective in his time period, which I thought was particularly interesting. And it's one of the things I wanted to find out in my research, how you could embed a kind of generative AI character in contemporary world, and what they would understand of the wider world. So that's what that was. And also the challenge of there not being any photographs of William Wordsworth, obviously because of the time period, and only a few portraits of him and no recordings of his voice. So you were spared that his voice, I mean, we don't know what William Wordsworth's voice sounds like, so it wasn't William Wordsworth's voice. It was in fact the poet Simon Armitage, who's a whole different poet and a contemporary poet. Okay, so I'm just going to move on, if it will let me, to the findings of the project. So just to sum up, historical accuracy. So several visitors asked AI Wordsworth really factual questions. So we did an experiment. We had him situated in the museum. People came and asked questions. Lots of people tried to trick him and ask factual questions or ask obscure questions. He didn't always know the right answer. And then he made things up, as generative AI does. annoyed some people, amused other people. That was one of the challenges, that it doesn't stick to historic accuracy, which we did know, but we wondered how that would work in museum setting. It was interesting to ask him. I'm calling him a him. I realize he's an it, but I find that tricky. So people asked AI Wordsworth factual questions, but I found it more interesting to ask kind of reflections or opinions. So asking, what do you think about this? Or have you experienced this feeling? Led to quite interesting responses. So the kind of factual nature didn't work so well, but the opinions worked really well. One of the challenges was getting the accuracy in the visual representation. So people thought, oh, that doesn't look like William Wordsworth. And the recording of the voice became an issue at certain points. But I think that's one of the challenges of using this kind of technology in a museum. People have a sort of sense of what they will look like and what they'll sound like, even if, because of the historical period, you don't really know what they might sound like. Data sets. So one of the things I was exploring and found really interesting was what data sets AI Wordsworth was trained on. So what was his context? What did he understand of the world? What he knew outside of his time? Can he imagine, beyond his time, and what his limitations are? I think that was really interesting. The encounter. So I found that lots of people, when they sat down in front of the computer screen where AI Wordsworth was, referred to him as Mr. Wordsworth or Hello William, or they felt a connection. They felt that they needed to kind of address him slightly formally. They wanted to engage with who they thought he was. And one thing I found interesting was that because you were talking to the figure on a screen, it wasn't a very kind of poetic experience. There were limitations of that. It didn't feel like a kind of intimate connection with a literary figure. I think more work needed to be done on making it feel like a kind of intimate, personal encounter. And Rocket Makers, who we partnered with, have done quite a lot of work on making sort of three-dimensional kind of like heads, like figures in a glass box. So it's a kind of moving AI figure that you can engage with and speak to. So I think that may have been more suitable for a museum setting. And my final reflection is, so this experiment led me to question whether we want to speak to an author in this way, whether we already speak to particularly William Wordsworth through his poems. Do we need to have this kind of technologically mediated encounter? And whether there's more work to be done on whether this type of literary encounter works in the heritage sector, whether it's something that people want, whether it's something that works well. So I think we're going to be doing more work, particularly around the kind of technological innovation, refining some of the ways that it works to see whether that's something that the heritage sector wants to adopt. I think it's particularly important for accessibility, encouraging people to engage with generative AI tools that they might not be engaging with in other ways, and to understand the kind of potential of this form. Okay, that's everything. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. I am going to stop the recording so that we can head to Q&A and discussion.
Perfect.